strategy is something that is grounded in reality. When you evolve the strategy for a company, you look at your resources, you do a SWOT analysis, a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis. And then you go step by step in order to frame a positioning for your company. But then you also draw up a 5 to 10 year roadmap and then fold it backwards. Because resources are never going to be sufficient for any company at any stage to be able to take all the actions necessary to become a big company. What you can do is you can draw up a roadmap and go step by step in a certain direction which has been carefully thought through as to what you really want to become in a few years' time, and then deploy those resources, capabilities, technology, and work diligently and in a disciplined manner.
Hello and welcome to the Indian Diaspora Podcast. This is your host Rahul. Today we have a very special global executive with us, Vishwanath Madhugiri. He's from the Indian Diaspora in Dallas, Texas. Mr. Vishwanath has lived across 3 continents, and this conversation is going to be about the bridging role Indian Americans have played and do play today between the two largest democracies and the growing economies in the world, USA and India. Vishwanath ji, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Rahul. It's a pleasure to be on this podcast. Thank you so much. It's a great honor to be on your podcast. Thank you.
We are honored to have you. So, I had a very short introduction about yourself, but tell us more about you, Vishwanath.
Well, I have had a multiple industry background. Started off with the Tata Group in India, and then I moved to the UK, and I was also part of Infosys Technologies. And then I moved to the US, and having worked in two big organizations, I felt that there was a need to do something from a startup stage. And in that respect, I met a very, very capable, globally renowned expert in imaging sensing technologies, Mr. Atul Joshi. And we are now working together along with a great team of technologists to be able to create a company called Saaz Micro. And Saaz is already well established in imaging sensing technologies. What we do is we design advanced imaging sensors, electro-optical, infrared, multispectral, hyperspectral, event-based, and neuromorphic sensors for space, aerospace, and defense applications.
Excellent. What a journey you've had from India to UK, being part of the technology IT revolution, and here in the US, the semiconductor chips and imaging sensing technology, right? So you've seen a lot, Vishwanath ji. Now, let's start a journey from. Sorry, carry on.
Yes, I mean, it's a very humbling experience because you get to see and learn a lot of things, the cutting edge of technology, and it has been a very, great experience. Thank you.
Now let's draw parallels to India's journey and transformation and that of yours, right? A professional like yours who has seen decades go by, industries change. Let's reflect on how our country, how our motherland has changed. What is your reflection as an Indian American looking back at India on the transformation of our motherland?
I think that's a very important question you've asked, Rahul, because if I see, the manner in which India has grown, especially in the last 15, 20 years, and of course, based on the foundations, strong foundations that were created right after, from the time of independence. I think it's amazing to see that India has gathered a tremendous amount of speed, and it's also doing most things right in terms of, focusing on the right kind of technologies, focusing on the welfare of its, masses, and also playing a increasingly important role both in the international stage, geopolitically, as well as in the political and the economic domains. So I think it's really heartening to note there's been a sea change, and India is well on its way to punching its weight, its rightful weight in the world.
Yeah. Let's reflect on this journey. Imagine the first time you went abroad, you left India, and I suppose that was the UK.
Mhm.
Uh, how was India perceived back then? We talked about how where India is now, but I want to appreciate where this journey began from. Right? How was India perceived back then? How was it seen in the UK? And when the first time you moved to the US, how was India perceived? What was brand India back then? And then we could perhaps talk about in foreign lands, in America, what's the perception of India? But let's go back to that point in your history.
Right. I mean, in terms of perceptions, I think a lot of things have changed. So, for example, when I moved to the UK, the IT industry was getting established.
Yeah.
The Indian IT professionals were moving to various countries across the world. And it does take a lot of effort in order to, create create the impression with the people that India is capable of software development, high technology work, and it is not so easy for the local population to accept it initially. But these things, I would say, more than my coming to the UK, this was established decades ago by the pioneers in the Indian IT industry, right from the late 60s, but accelerated after the 1980s and the 1990s,
Hmm.
especially after the Y2K issue in 1999 2000. And there has been a sea change in terms of the level of professionalism, the acceptability of Indian IT companies in terms of sitting on the table with the global giants and, in fact, dominating certain areas of the IT sector.
Yeah.
So, this is as far as the IT industry is concerned. But India has also played, I would say, an increasingly seminal role in the biotechnology sector. If you
Interesting.
look at the pharma industry, the
Yeah.
biotechnology industry, Indian, medicines are now available across the world. India seems to have, increasingly mastered how to scale things up, whether it's in the IT industry or in the pharma industry. It has also learned how to produce products at a very reasonable cost. Of
Mhm.
course, using the highly capable manpower that is available in India. So I think these are the two outstanding success stories as far as the Indian industry is concerned.
Yeah. Love that. You know, you used a term called seat on the table, you
You
know,
know,
uh,
uh,
coming out of colonization, which was our past, and, what the foundation of education that Jawaharlal Nehru ji put in the IIT establishment of IITs. And in a way, the product of that, the information age that it gave up eventually, with, uh, you mentioned early IT pioneers in the 60s and 70s, but also later on, and then biotechnology. It's been an amazing journey. And the result of that is having a seat on the table, being architect of the future, not only in technology, but also business, politics that we see, in different spheres of life.
yeah,
Now,
absolutely. Mhm.
mhm. Now, when did you move to the US, Vishwanath?
Well, I moved very recently, I would say relatively recently. I moved in early 2016,
Okay.
but it has been an amazing experience. I mean, obviously, the US is very, very business focused,
Yeah.
and it really appreciates hard work and dedication
Yeah.
and focus. And I think that has been the continuing story of why the United States continues to be a magnet for millions of people across the world. Um, the uh, the immersion of talent, the interdisciplinary excellence, the ability to seamlessly work across boundaries with professionals who are highly capable,
Yeah.
and also the opportunity to create something consequential and outstanding in various fields. So I think the United States continues to be a pioneer
Yeah,
in fundamental research, and many of the cutting edge areas which are now emerging, whether it's artificial intelligence and biotechnology, and also leading the world in pure science research. So I think it's been an amazing experience.
absolutely. But change is something that, history always shows that change happens. And let's reflect at the change happening here. We are recording this episode in June of 2025. As we reflect on this date, America is turning slightly isolationist through its policies, right? No judging there, uh, factually speaking. And second, India was always seen as a tame nation in its foreign policy in the past. You know, there were articles in World Affairs magazines how India didn't take a stand, but now India boldly takes a stand. You know, Mr. S. Jaishankar is a very very popular figure in social media for the stand he takes, or the recent India Kashmir uh, event in which battle skirmish in which India told its narrative through its missionaries, and it took a stand on the global stage, or the Russia-Ukraine conflict in which India very openly took a stand against the Western Bloc on what it believes in, of neutrality, if you will. So change is happening, right? America, some would say, is turning isolationist, and India is turning more global and more assertive, if you will. And with China as an established global economic power and a political power, right? How do you see in this context, and we as Indian Americans, right? How do you see we use the term bridge that Indian Americans play between US and India, right? How do you see the role of Indian Americans and the new India and the US in the next decade and possibly this century?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, Rahul. And I think the fundamentals remain the same. I mean, the opportunities for the Indian diaspora to act as a very strong bridge between the United States and India continue to be very strong and, in fact, continue to accelerate, even with the changing global environment. I think the opportunities are huge because let's not forget that we are talking about very competent and capable professionals and individuals
Yeah.
from the largest and the oldest democracies in the world, and there is such a huge potential for them to collaborate and to act as a bridge in order to create better understanding and better relationships, to collaborate on cutting edge technologies. And I know for sure that this is already happening across various levels. Irrespective, I mean, change is the essence of life. Things are never static, things continue to change. But I think what is more important is how do we take something at the flood and how do we use that as a competitive advantage to create the maximum capabilities and goodness for the peoples of the two countries. So I think continue to see huge opportunities. In fact, the opportunities uh, would in fact open up in different areas as a result of, for example, if you take artificial intelligence research, if you take the collaboration in defense technologies, if you take the scientists of the two countries getting together and working together to invent new products and solutions. Talking about collaboration in combating some of the endemic problems that the world faces, like climate change, um, uh, you know, going to space, exploring Mars and the moon together, joint space missions. The opportunities are huge, and as you rightly mentioned earlier, because of the foundations created in India, you have a situation where the Indian space industry is already very well established, and the new space environment is also rising very fast, where the private sector players are increasingly playing a role in designing satellites, launching rockets, designing sensors. So I think a tremendous amount of collaboration opportunities exist between the two countries. In fact, I would say that there is currently a joint mission between NASA and the Indian Space Research Organization called NISAR, which is the launch of a very sophisticated satellite, which is the NASA ISRO Synthetic Aperture Radar satellite, which will map the Earth and which will be able to map the entire Earth using the two synthetic aperture radars. So I think this is a example of cutting edge collaboration,
Yep.
and much more is on the way as well.
Wow, wonderful. The word is collaboration, right? When two big democracies and human capital, intellectual talent, and the markets, right? All of them come together, all you have is possibilities, possibilities, possibilities,
Yeah.
be it in space or in business. Hmm, interesting. Um, let's sort of try to understand the DNA of both the nations, where they're coming from. I'll explain. Let's take India. You reflected initially in your opening that it was the information technology industry and biotech industry. Let's add in the doctors as well. Doctors who came here,
Absolutely.
medicine,
Yeah.
pharmaceuticals. These industries have been sort of our recent past and current future, and there is AI, right? But if you were to understand, what would what would be the core DNA, the foundation of what India has to offer to the world in the next decade or
Mhm.
next 50 years, what would you say, Vishwanathji?
Well, I think that's a really good and, in fact, challenging question. While it is difficult to project how India can offer its expertise across the world over the next 50 years, I think it's already clear that India is capable of providing a lot of talent,
Yeah.
talent in large numbers. So that is the first point. The second point is that if you combine it with the fact that across the world, there are key countries and regions that are experiencing a decline in population,
Yeah.
and then you have a situation where already many countries have taken steps to attract capable talent, and that capable talent is available in abundance in countries such as India. For example, Spain is now experiencing a decline in its population. Japan is experiencing a
Mhm.
decline in its population, and they are changing their policies in order to attract professionals from other countries to be able to fill the gap. I think this provides a great opportunity for Indians to make a very outstanding and seminal contribution to the development of another country, which is exactly what has happened when Indian Americans have arrived here and they have contributed to the progress of the United States or other Western countries. So I think the opportunity. So one is the flow of talent, and this is a reality. This is a demographic reality that we cannot wish away. This is actually happening, and countries are taking all the necessary steps to enable talent to flow in seamlessly.
Yeah.
The other part of it is, of course, when you realize that just a few days ago, India overtook Japan to become the fourth biggest economy in the world,
Hmm.
or there is some debate about exactly when that has already happened, or it's a few months down the line. But in any case, that is a reality now. And in another 2.5 to 3 years, we will have a situation where India will overtake Germany to become the third biggest economy in the world. When you have a situation like that, there are a lot of options that become available to India in terms of using its talent, using its soft power, using its technological capabilities in order to do a lot of good for the world.
Hmm.
And of course, when you are number three economy in the world, you have an entirely new set of responsibilities. And that is exactly what you mentioned about how India is exercising its role in a much more direct and in a much more, focused manner when you mentioned about how Indian policies are changing as we speak. So I think there are a lot of opportunities because with great power comes great responsibility. And India, I'm sure, will exercise it judiciously.
Yeah. Great reflections, Vishwanathji. It's basically the talent, right? The human capital that we have to offer to the world. And this talent is English speaking.
Mhm.
This talent is tolerant. Talk about 28 languages in India and how different cultures coexist. That's why, we find a lot of Indians just easily assimilate beautifully in the cultures, whichever home they choose. Human
Right.
capital, intellectual capital, tolerance, kindness. Uh, I get reminded of the Parsis when they came to India, when the king said, "Our kingdom is full," and offered them a milk. The Parsis added a sprinkle of sugar. That's
Absolutely.
what applies to Indians now.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think you mentioned a very important point. Uh, the very fact that we are able to assimilate quickly and the very fact that we are able to contribute also gives us a great sense of responsibility as Indian
mhm,
Americans within the United States or as the Indian diaspora in any country for that matter. And I think that role we should play with a great
yeah,
deal of
yeah.
respect, humility, and responsibility because we have a very important role as a bridge between the cultures of the two countries, between the economies of the two countries, between the peoples, so to speak. And I think that role should be exercised with great respect and humility because that is exactly what enables us to play an effective role in contributing to the country that we have immigrated into. And as a consequence of that, to be also able to give back to the country of our origin. So I
Mhm.
think this is something which Indian Americans, I'm sure that they are extremely aware of, and they are by and large making a very positive contribution.
Absolutely. Strong words out there. Very, very, very important advice about having respect and awareness of that, huge honor of being that bridge across the two cultures. And
Indeed.
something very unique about our culture, or I would say, I would broaden that to a lot of Asian diaspora, I think Chinese Americans as well. While they retain their roots, they have a lot of Asian diasporas have assimilated in the new culture. And what's the context in which I say this? Uh, a lot of early Americans who came to America in 1850s, uh, or late 19th century, they were asked to forget their language. I myself in America have met Norwegian Americans or German Americans in very German or Norwegian American towns where they say their forefathers were told to just shed their past and be American because a new nation was forming. But as America progressed, and later, after 1965, uh, the law changed, and more diversity was allowed. America sort of became more tolerant and said, "Hey, you could be both. You could be an Indian and American. You could be a Mexican and an American. You could be a Polish and an American, an Italian and American." Right. That said, something special about the Asian cultures is, perhaps it's thousands of years of legacy and pride. We tend to live in both the worlds. We are as Indian, or we are as American, or as British and Indian, or as Canadian and Indian, or as Australian and Indian. you know and this duality is a beautiful thing. And as you said, Vishwanathji, showing awareness and respect to that responsibility is also an important thing.
Yes, I think you put it very rightly, Rahul, because what it translates into is that it enables you to make your best contribution to the United States and also be aware that it is making a difference, because at the end of the day, it has to be not just an assimilation of cultures, but it should also make a positive difference in whatever field we have selected, to be able to work for the welfare of the people of the United States. And I think that is something which the Indian Americans have really understood. And this is a very positive role. And what you mentioned about being able to, live both um, with an Indian culture as well as an American mindset. That is the beauty of the United States. I mean,
Yeah.
the United States is a country of immigrants, and it has, for centuries, attracted highly dedicated and committed individuals who came to its shores and decided to make a contribution to make this country great. So I think that is something which we should always understand.
Absolutely. Now let's give a perspective to this conversation, which is the role of Indians, global Indians in business, be it as entrepreneurs, businessmen, or professionals, right? Just as context, we saw how India has transformed. We discussed about the shared identities of being Indian and American, or British or Indian, right? And we also reflected on the changing global landscape, right? In your opinion, what role have the business class, professional class, played in this transition? What are they playing now, and importantly, what should they be doing in the future to create the new world order we were talking about?
So I think, very humbly, I would say that I'm not very qualified to speak about the massive contributions made by the people who in the past have made so much of sacrifices in order to create this situation of this sweet spot, so to speak, in order to create these big businesses and play a consequential role in fostering Indian American relations. There have been massive contributions, and the names are too countless for me to take.
Yeah.
But I will say this, that the future is very bright, because for example, if you take the way the Indian companies assimilate in the United States, they hire an American workforce, and they really create the enabling conditions to push the boundaries of technology. I think there is scope for tremendous collaboration. Likewise, there is tremendous scope for American companies to invest in India, and also to create the joint collaboration opportunities, because uh, it is a good marriage of the economies of scale that India offers and the cutting edge technologies that the United States is able to bring in various fields. And I think that in a world that is becoming increasingly uncertain, it is good to know that we have manufacturing opportunities and manufacturing bases in India as well as the US, so that they are able to bank upon whenever needed, to be able to capitalize on those opportunities and create both Indian as well as American businesses in each of these countries.
I love that reflection, Vishwananti. In the 90s, India was just this back office center, right? BPO started from, business process outsourcing started in that era. But then research started happening in India. you know Indian government is talking about make in
Make it
India.
into
We are yet to realize that vision. I'm sure more of manufacturing will happen, but hey, India is also a market now,
Yeah,
right? So from back office process to certain components of research to full-fledged research on an important field, be it a molecule in a pharma or a software AI product, to manufacture and the market, right? So there's a lot of transition that is happening and that will happen, but seamlessly dancing between the two cultures and economies are global Indians,
yeah,
because they are They are much more comfortable and aware of both the contexts. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah,
No, I think that that's very important because you look at not just the IT industry or the pharma industry. Look at how India has been able to create the biometric identity for 1.4 billion Indians, the Aadhaar, the Unique Identification Authority of India, started by, I mean, where
yeah,
Mr. Nandan Nilekani was asked to head that. And today that has become an example for not just the developing countries, but even the United States and also many Western countries. They are amazed at how India was able to scale it up and create all of these unique identities, which has now led to various stacks, the AI, the India stack, which has now led to the financial stack, and that has resulted in the small scale industry stack. So you can see that having a solid foundation of digital technologies can enable you to step by step create various platforms which have an outsized impact on the welfare of hundreds of millions of people.
yeah,
Opening bank accounts to those people, hundreds of millions of people who had never had a bank account in their lives. And such examples are amazing. And this is something that India can share with the world and is already sharing.
yeah.
So I think these are very good examples.
You know, you reminded me of this thing earlier. I asked a question about
About
DNA,
the end.
right? What's our DNA? And then we reflected, hey, it's the talent. That's what we have to offer. But also this, I think one of our DNA is frugal innovation, and a lot of books have been written, but also ability to do things at scale. You know, the Kumbh Mela, for example, the largest gathering of humanity in the world, and so many things can go wrong when you have such a scale. But imagine that, managing that too. The Chandrayaan mission and the mission to the moon at really low cost, to the Aadhaar card and the financial payment infrastructure, really low cost. And the products that we sell in Africa, right? I remember M-Pesa was a mobile service we used to sell in Africa too. The
Yep,
Bajaj, uh, you know, Bajaj two-wheelers being in Latin America, South America, and Africa, and being loved for what it is, right? At the right price point. These
indeed.
are really, really interesting, low cost, scalable innovation along with the talent that India has to offer to the world. What do you think?
Indeed. I mean, you mentioned, thank you for mentioning those examples because those are the examples where India has scaled up, has, brought good things to other parts of the world and not just to India. And I think one of the most amazing examples was during COVID when Indian vaccines were sent across the world. And I think the soft power that was created and the gratefulness that the people felt in other countries about how India was able to help them and the gratitude that was developed as a result of that will stand India in good stead for a long time to come because India helped those countries at a time of an existential crisis, a black swan event, a once in a blue moon event, where India stepped up and despite having so many problems of its own to be able to take care of 1.4 billion people, it did not hesitate to step out and deliberately help those people who are in need. I think that is a fantastic example of, first of all, how India was capable of helping simply because it had developed the scale in the pharma industry to be able to step up at very short notice and be able to help. Imagine if it had not developed that scale, it would not have been able to help itself. So I think this is a very important example of how scale can help, in many, many fields.
Beautiful. Love that. Love that reflection.
Thank you.
We also spoke about markets. I'm sure a lot of people know this, but I'll bring to the conversation. A lot of Westerners now are again tapping into the Indian market. Besides the diaspora. So there's a company called Odoo, ODOO, a company started by a Belgian in Gandhinagar in Gujarat in India. And he has built a multi-million dollar, a billion dollar empire with the talent that India offers. for the market in India, built by a foreigner, and I love that he's in India, but then
But
he's
then,
taking it global now.
Mhm.
So that's a very, very interesting example. Or there is a there's a US entrepreneur who is in Bangalore and who has started a burrito business. I think it's
Yes.
called California Burrito.
Yeah.
So these are very, very interesting examples of not only the diaspora, but also international community tapping into the India market, not as a selling opportunity, but also as a product creation opportunity. Build in India, but also taking global. So that's
Ab-
also an interesting change
yeah.
happening. How
No, no,
the world is
absolutely.
connecting with India.
Yeah. No, no, absolutely. I think, thank you for mentioning these two examples because, those are, I would salute those pioneers because it is not very easy to do business in India,
Yeah,
especially for someone who doesn't understand the market. But what is happening now is with the ease of doing business and the increasingly beneficial policies of the government of India, you have a tremendous amount of such people coming to India, starting businesses, and using it as a base for re exporting it to other parts of the world. That's an amazing thing, which is very, very welcome, and it can only increase in numbers.
love that. Now, with that, Vishwanathji, let's come to America. We reflected our gratitude for America, saying that this is a culture, this is a nation of immigrants that allows you to be who you are, but also like any other nation demands loyalty and love. There are American values, of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, for example, that's enshrined in the Constitution. That you said one has to respect and be aware of. But speak from the point of view of upliftment of, let's say, the free world. And here I'm looking at democracies of India and US. How more should both the nations be working together, and also its citizens working together?
Right. Yeah, I think there are a tremendous amount of opportunities. I mean, whether it is strengthening democracy, whether it is, working on projects jointly in third countries, because at the end of the day, diplomacy is also about how you use it as an instrument of doing good to other parts of the world. And there can be amazing opportunities for doing joint projects in various countries across the world where you pull together the joint skill sets, the mutually exclusive but collectively exhaustive skill sets of the peoples of the two countries or professionals of the two countries, and then you deploy it for making a tangible difference to the lives of people in countries which need that kind of expertise. And that kind of help builds a space in the hearts and minds of those people to be able to exploit other opportunities, whether it is business opportunities, whether it is giving employment to the local people in industries that need to be developed in those areas, in welfare projects, in developmental projects, in joint initiatives. There is something to be said for, doing good because at the end of the day, it's a virtuous cycle and it creates a lot of beneficial opportunities for the countries that initiate those steps.
You made me think there, Vishwanathji. C.K. Prahlad, famous professor of management here, no more. He had written a book called "The Fortune at the Bottom of the Pyramid." Way back in early 2000.
Yeah,
Um, and if you really reflect on what we said, reflected on India was about scaling frugal innovation. And if you look at USA, the land of Apple, OpenAI, you know, the first Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine, it tends to work in the cutting edge and the premium space. Everything is sort of big, bold, and large in the US. And how do you make this two Venn diagrams, intersect, right? Frugal innovation and scaling and premium innovation, as you said, for the benefit of the society. So to be very specific, right? Could there be an AI algorithm that is cutting edge and advanced Gemini, OpenAI, but also low cost to produce that that DeepSeek of China gave us, right? You don't need to spend $16 billion to develop an AI LLM model, right? I think if that comes from India, right, the infrastructure, the scaling, the talent, this is where we have possibilities of the premium cutting edge innovation and the scale and the talent and frugal innovation really marrying each other for the benefit of the world. Just to take the AI example.
Indeed. No, in fact, thank you for mentioning C.K. Prahalad. I have a great deal of respect for him. He wrote the book, the Fortune at the Bottom of the Pyramid. Yeah,
Yeah.
this amazing book. Yeah, I mean, he was spot on in terms of how we can do good for the, uh, to the disenfranchised and the marginalized populations across the world. But at the same time, it can be something of great benefit to the people who do that. So that is one thing. In terms of the, how we can achieve this level of integration between the diverse capabilities of India and the United States, um, I think it is an opportunity for both countries to understand where each of their experts is coming from. And in fact, India and the US have collaborated in various fields, as we discussed earlier, for decades. They understand each other extremely well. They work as professionals extremely well. They have, they are very comfortable working with each other. And I do not see any reason why they cannot identify specific areas of collaboration, like, as you mentioned, more frugal AI, agentic AI, which is more focused on making a difference and addressing the real hard issues that the world is facing. Um, for example, the extreme climate changes that are happening, or how to map the Earth, or how to explore, space. Something, and also to mine, go into the oceans and look at the mineral deposits, and especially with the global warming that is happening, areas of the world are opening up which were inaccessible earlier, which were icy conditions, but which is now possible for people to go and start exploring for mineral deposits. The Arctic is another area where there can be joint initiatives between the United States and India. I think the possibilities are tremendous in terms of how we combine what you mentioned about the frugal innovation aspect of um, India, combined with the cutting edge, can do basic research, attitude that America brings. I think there is a lot of possibility there.
Lovely. And I think we have just gotten started there, you know.
Indeed,
And discussions like these, put ideas in the minds of people, and eventually ideas turn into actions.
indeed.
So
And in fact,
great.
India has a lot of opportunity there, because India, although it has made a tremendous amount of progress over the last 2 decades, there are opportunities for India to have specific areas of focus carved out and to really pursue them in a disciplined manner.
Yeah.
Whether it is new aspects of biotechnology, new aspects of artificial intelligence, whether it is space research, sensing technologies, medical applications, interdisciplinary focus between computing and biology, between computing and retail, computing and AI. I mean, some of the greatest breakthroughs that are going to happen in this century are going to be in scaling up computing power in all of these great data centers,
Yeah.
and also in biology. So some of the most seminal breakthroughs are going to happen in biology and AI. Combine that with AI, we are going to see a situation where the nature of the lives that we lead is going to be transformed totally.
Yeah.
And I think there are opportunities for India and the United States to work on such aspects which make civilization, the human civilization, ready to be able to face and tackle those dramatic changes
Yeah.
that we are going to encounter and which we are already beginning to encounter.
Love that. Love that. And as I said, we are just getting started. That's what my heart tells me.
Yes, indeed.
This decade, this century is going to give us a lot of more answers.
Yeah.
All right. We'll move further in our discussion, Vishwanathji. Let's talk about strategy. So I believe you are the chief strategy officer at Saaz company. Um, what does strategy mean for you? What is strategy? I'll ask a very basic question.
Okay. So I think, for me, at the end of the day, strategy is something that is grounded in reality. Okay. So when you evolve the strategy for a company, you look at your resources, you do a SWOT analysis, a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go step by step in order to frame a positioning for your company in order to be able to do the things that you're able to do at that point in time. But then you also draw a 5 to 10 year roadmap and then fold it backwards. Because resources are never going to be sufficient for any company, big or small, at any stage, to be able to take all the actions and do all the things that are necessary to become a big company. But what you can do is you can draw a roadmap and go step by step in a certain direction which has been carefully thought through as to what you really want to become in a few years' time. And then deploy those resources, capabilities, technology, and work diligently and in a disciplined manner to achieve that so that when you scale yourself up step by step, you are in a position to increasingly use all the elements that are available at your disposal to be able to then become a bigger company.
Yep, I love that. Now I'll draw a parallel and ask a very interesting question. So if Indian Americans were a company, right, what would be the strategy for this diaspora or this company?
Sorry, could you clarify?
It's a very interesting question, right?
Yeah,
If, you mentioned about strategy. Basically it's about having a direction and a goal, and with your limited resources, you get there. Strategy is very much tied to the vision, right?
yeah,
I'll sort of draw parallels to our discussion here. We spoke about nations and role Indian Americans play. If Indian Americans were a company, right, we were a unit together, which we are, right? What should be the strategy for the Indian American diaspora as we bridge, 1 feet in the motherland, 1 feet in the karma bhumi, right, to move forward? You know,
oh,
if
that,
you
that,
yeah,
yeah, it's an excellent question. And yeah, it's not very easy to answer, but
yeah,
I think some elements of it are very clear. I think considering the strong foundations that have already been created by the Indian American community in order to play this very, very positive role, it has to be a natural evolution of what is already being done. But then it also has to take into account the changing realities, the ground realities. It also has to have the ability to pivot quickly in situations where demand, the pivots. And at the end of the day, if I were to look at the Indian American community as a company and what would be the strategy for that, I would say that it has to be something very similar to what a company's strategy or an individual strategy is. And that is, if you want to achieve your objectives, you have to be agile,
yeah,
you have to be fleet footed,
yeah,
you have to be adaptable, you have to be flexible, you have to know how and when to pivot quickly, and you have to keep an open mind to take advantage of the opportunities
yeah,
that come your way. So I think this flexibility is this network centric behavior where you are not too rigid and where you are flexible enough to pivot when necessary
I love
and
that.
take on board the sensibilities of both the parties, whether it's the Indians or the Americans,
Yeah,
then I think you're in a good position to act as a very strong bridge. And in fact, you will be consulted and you will be referred to and you will be respected
yeah,
precisely because you bring those capabilities to the table.
love that. Love that. And have a seat on the table as we reflected
Yes,
and opened this discussion
yes,
initially. You know,
yes.
I'll sort of give this background, a drop to the listeners, right? A lot of
Lot
second or third generation, global Indians might have seen out of touch from the motherland. There were terms used like ABCD, American born confused desis, for example.
Yeah,
And, a lot of Indians may not know, the word I've used is may not know the ground realities and dynamics of, other nations, right? But here, global Indians are in a unique position to, know and be practically aware of both the environments. And that is a superpower, that is a responsibility, and have a seat on the table in both the economies, right? And build a strategy around that, right? So as a result of it, if both the nations thrive, their GDPs grows, their cultural output grows, there are more trade opportunities, it's a win-win-win for everybody.
absolutely. And you really mentioned the absolutely the right things because as an immigrant into another country, you have to first seek to understand and then to be understood because you have to understand the local dynamics and mold yourself in a way that you are acceptable, that you are seen to be making a contribution, and that you are a positive force.
Yeah,
And I think that is something which should serve the Indian Americans in good stead. And that has been, I think, largely what the Indian Americans have been doing in terms of their contributions.
love that. This
Thank
sort of brings us home towards the last section of our discussion, which is rapid fire questions. We're just going to ask some fun questions and,
you. Mhm.
have your inner thoughts come out. But so far reflecting, we spoke about the journey of a global professional, which is you, and sort of equated that with the journey of India as it's progressed. The unique role of India, you know, the environment of foreign land where diaspora calls its home, let's say America, and the bridging role that global Indians have played and what the future holds, right? So that's been a very, very interesting conversation. And then we
Right.
tied that to strategy, which is what you do.
Mhm. Yeah,
So with that, we'll bring it home with some rapid fire questions.
sure.
Yeah. Um, one word to describe contemporary India.
Well, I think dynamic,
Next one word to describe contemporary USA.
innovative,
Um, one word to describe the possibilities between India and USA.
limitless.
Dynamic, innovative, limitless. It could be our slogan. Okay, love that. All right. All right. One first question, a myth about India that still exists that you would want to dispel.
Um, I can't think of any such myths because I think those shibboleths have long been put to rest. India is now regarded as a very, very capable country in all respects. And I think Indian Americans have also played an extremely important role in changing perceptions. So in a very positive manner. So I think it's all good.
Got it. So let's say red tape and corruption is out of India. I'm just being
Red
provocative here.
red tape and corruption is not out of India, but it has been marginalized to a great extent. Um, the government of India has taken a tremendous amount of steps to become an action oriented.
Yeah.
A lot of policies and a lot of systems that have been introduced, for example, Aadhaar,
Yeah.
which is a digital platform, is precisely the thing or the thing that has resulted in direct transfer of payments to individuals to bank accounts, which has cut down red tape and corruption.
Respect. There has been progress, and that has to be acknowledged.
Yeah.
Um, One myth about USA that you think Indians might have.
Well, I think by now there has been such a flow of talent between the two countries that I do not think I cannot recall any such myths. But despite that, I think when Indians come to the United States, they might think that some things are very easy,
Right.
but that is not the case. And
The
you
land of
ultimately,
milk and honey.
indeed, yeah. But ultimately, you have to work hard. You have to establish yourself, and so that aspect
Yeah.
remains. There might be some people who still think like that,
Yeah.
but that's going away fast. Yes, I would
Yeah.
say.
And you could work equally hard and be resourceful and strategic in Kenya, Nairobi, or Bangalore, India, or Singapore, and still achieve the quote unquote American dream.
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right. Lovely.
Uh-huh.
A doyen in strategy that you
That you
respect.
respect. Oh, CK Prahalad, definitely. Yeah, and I think Gary Hamel, who was a student at one point, and they co-wrote many books. Again, a very respected figure. I think, yeah, these are the two people that come to my place.
Love that.
Love that. Mhm.
All right.
Okay.
Excellent.
Excellent.
What does it
What's
mean to be Indian American?
the need to be Indian American? Okay.
No, sorry.
Uh,
What does it mean to be Indian American?
what
What
is
is
it?
Indian American?
Okay. Well, I think what it means is that you are in a very privileged position. You are in a position to influence things. You are in a position to act upon things which work towards the welfare of the citizens of both the countries. It's a position of high responsibility because it also comes from a position of knowledge and strength and capabilities. And I think that position should be used in a very wise manner.
Yeah, love that. And finally, on a very light note, if you are done with all the karma yoga, and you were to really retire and put your boots down, would that be US or would that be India?
I think I would like to divide my time between the two countries.
That's the divided hearts with which we live.
Yeah, because I'm
Yeah,
attached to both of them. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. All right, Vishwanathji, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on your journey and drawing parallels with the journey of the two nations and the role that the diaspora plays. This was your perspective. We'll bring in more perspectives from professionals, business people, heads of different practices across the diaspora, and we're doing amazing work. But I really, really, cherished your opinions and thoughts, Vishwanathji.
Thank you so much. A great deal of respect to you, Rahul, for the initiatives that you have taken. This is really pathbreaking, and all strengths to you. And thank you so much for this honor.
Thank you so much, Vishwanathji. Love from the entire Indian diaspora. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.